Welcome to Lightboard Learning. I'm James FitzGerald, OPEX founder, and what we're doing here is breaking down principles in coaching, principles in fitness. I have the large task today of introducing in some way, shape, or form a beginner's guide to primal movement. And I say it, I intentionally say it in that way because the topic itself is quite big and it does mean a lot in terms of how we design fitness programs today. In large part because it captures that word of movement. And when you want to get into the idea of physicality, or I should say the conversations around physicality, movement, fitness, and the history of it and why we do what we do today in movement, it's fairly big, right? So I want to discuss it in a number of different ways just to allow you to start an understanding of when you go out and do movement day to day, where does it come from? Why do you do those things? What are the intentions behind them? Because then it'll hopefully allow us to land in that area of this is the big history of movement and this is what we see in fitness design. Just because we think that's important, which is classic OPEX style, we want to ask some of those hard questions based upon that. What I want you to end up with recognizing is that in a large way, shape, or form, especially for general health, exercise and movement today has some two big areas that we need to kind of just get over, get on with, and recognize. Number one, generally we do not need to move today to continue our progeny and evolution and species survival. Just that statement in itself, you think about it for a second, that requires a big stretch. But we have to understand that. We don't need to. We have so many indications day to day of technological support, communication support, information support, simple things like wheels, in which we don't have to move as much as we used to. The most interesting thing connected to that, which is the second portion of it, is that it's constructed in a way today in most cases to help fix something. So that's why I always land on movement should be done because because people are capable of doing it and because it's for you. And that all leads back from those 2 points of like, well, we don't need to move today and it's constructed as some form of folly or diversion tactic away from other things. Now, this is important for you to maybe pause the video here and just spend some time just on those 2 points, just so you recognize you maybe have been really active for a long period of time. All the people you see around you are fully active, but in a general consensus across the board for this globe and 7.9 billion people, we don't need to be active today, and it is constructed. We have constructed it as, I say folly and diversion just because it makes people think really hard about it. Now, so what I meant is by understanding those 2 points, we got to get on with it, right? So just because we don't need to move, that doesn't mean we don't find some of the beauty inside of it. That means we don't talk about the evolution or the history around primal movement and what we used to do to basically allow ourselves to improve our physical function and to work towards potential. So let's go back in time and just think about how we got to that point. And I'm trying to be really brief on it, but in terms of our existence, regardless of what you even think of existence, and I'm going to take an existence of millions of years ago of hominids and hominid development and an out of Africa kind of conceptual idea based upon it, and just think about that in terms of a time frame. Take a second to say, well, what were they moving or those individuals doing for movement back then? And then take a time frame of like the biggest archaeological, unfolding that we had roughly 200,000 to 400,000 years ago. We're starting to uncover, okay, there were things going on at that period of time. And then take a step back to like domestication of animals of 40 to 50,000 years ago and what that meant to movement and say, well, what were they moving then? And then continue that story and say, how about agriculture? What was the impact that agriculture had on movement, right? What was the impact of, doing big crops and producing all this vast resources? What did that impact have on movement? And now bring it to the technological information machine age, right? What did machines, refrigeration, toilets, airplanes, cars, bikes, what did that do for movement and the impact of culture, right? So the reason why you need to do that is that think about our existence in time And the way I like to joke about it, leg presses have only been around for 50 years, right? That's an example of a movement, right? A movement pattern, something that we express ourselves in. But it's important to recognize that fact, that we have this biological imprint that's been around for a really, really long period of time that looked just like this. But leg presses have only been around for 50 years. So that brings you very starkly to this reminder that, well, you got to ask the question, what did we do for exercise during all those times? And you start then recognizing, oh, wow, you know, exercise was done and it wasn't even a word. Why? Because daily physical activity was a part of our survival and our continued reproduction and the ability for us to improve ourselves and potential. Just think about that. Now, I don't mean to make it super reductionist into a hunter-gatherer concept and, you know, we got to go back to those ways. We don't also turn our back on that in terms of how we organize it for exercise. But the biggest issue here is that the intentions are now different. We've constructed language that's called fitness, and I quote unquote it because fitness used to be a biological reproduction and survival concept, and now it's like, oh, isn't that snatches at a gym, you know? So we've changed up this definition of it, and the intentions are drastically different today for fitness design. This is mainly the biggest growth that we need to recognize, is that we have to now day-to-day construct activity. We have to construct activity to not only ward off disease and to not only fix things, but to somehow connect us all to this thing that we're capable of doing. But that doesn't seem too powerful enough, right? It doesn't seem motivational enough. And we have to really just get on with that. We got to keep coming up with strategies that says, well, I know that I don't need to move, but I need to ward off and work against that. I need to resist that urge to like fall prey to, you know, how agile and adaptive we are as humans, right? And civilized and technologically advanced. If we agree upon that, we're just going to be stuck in a room on a computer trying to get emotions and resources and everything connected to us. Because we don't need to do that, right? We don't need to actually go outside and run for an hour. We don't need to go outside and, you know, we're going to be able to get our food because I can climb up something higher than someone else can. Do you see that? So this is the biggest issue we have to contend with, this whole concept that, you know, over a long period of time we have this time-stamped agreement that we needed to actually be physically active as a part of our lifestyle, which resulted in us allowing ourselves to work towards potential. Now we don't have that. So now we have to construct it, and we have to be very careful that as we construct it, the intentions are there to allow us to work towards us doing it because it's for ourselves and because we're capable of doing it, and for no other reason. And if we don't work everyone towards having the understanding of primal movement and how we've evolved to get to this point in time for fitness design, it's never going to end up being great intentions for fitness, and we're going to spend years and years just working in therapy, basically, of trying to fix things, when we could really just turn the light on it with those words that says, you know what, we got to get over the fact that we just don't need to do it anymore, but I do it because I'm capable of doing it. I know I'm capable of doing it. And then working towards physical potential allows us to unfold all these other potentials in our life that we didn't know were possible, all because we work towards our maximum physical potential. But then why do we continue to do that? Right? We do it because it's for you, and that's it.